Hello and welcome to My Security TV and our Tech and Sec Weekly, our Friday morning episode. My name is Chris Cubbage. I'm the director with My Security Media. Today we're crossing over to the US, South Carolina, I believe he is in. Rob Shaw, Senior Vice President with Marketing with Infinera. It's a telecommunications company and based in San Jose in the US as well. We're going to look at their GX series compact modular platform, just been deployed in Malaysia. So we'll get a bit of an industry insight, particularly on optical networking and where that sector is moving over to. Then we're going to cross to Hong Kong and they're going to be joined by Matthew Glitzer, the Vice President for Asia Pacific with IBM Security. And I think it was just yesterday or the day before, the X-Force Threat Intelligence Index was released, which showed that 25% of all attacks, cyber attacks, are occurring in the Asia Pacific region. So we'll walk through that report as well. If you genuinely do follow us or this is your first time, we cover on aerospace and space, defence and national security, cybersecurity and critical technology, and cities and infrastructure. So basically anything technology and anything security related. We are streaming on YouTube, LinkedIn and Facebook. And we also release these episodes out as a podcast with the Cybersecurity Weekly podcast. If you want to follow or check out what we're doing, it's otherwise on any social, just hashtag MySecurityTV. We tend to go for about 60 minutes. We might hit around the 50-minute mark with this one. And if you happen to be watching, very welcome to say good day. And in fact, I've got a few giveaways today as well. So welcome to let us know where you are listening from. But otherwise, just press like and that'll share us out. So thank you very much. Next slide. Okay, so next podcast. This will be out on Monday. I finally listened to this one. Dr. Tommaso Gagliardoni, and even he said this is a hard name for any Italian. But look, it's a great episode. Jane Lowe, our Singapore correspondent, has done about a half an hour session with Tommaso, diving into quantum computing, cryptography, and quantum security with Kadelsky Security. So it's a great session. That'll be out on Monday on the Cybersecurity Weekly podcast. On Tuesday, I've lined up the Managing Director with Macquarie Government. They've just launched their $17 million, I love that word, sovereign government data centre in Canberra. So we're going to be joined by Aidan Tudhope. So looking forward to that. And also, I haven't put them up on the screen just yet, but we've got Defentex looking at propulsion systems for space as well. So I'll add that on. Then next Friday, looking at smart factory technology, Industry 4.0, and we've got Dr. Jens Gomanen, Managing Director, Advanced Manufacturing Growth Centre. I think they're in Adelaide, but looking forward to that as well. And there's a bit of an announcement around that in terms of what they're doing over there with the AMGC. So that's next Friday. Just to catch up from Tuesday's episode, we crossed to Switzerland and we were joined by Algirde Pipakate. I know I can say her name now. Centre for Cybersecurity with the World Economic Forum, and that has also been released as a podcast. And then we also crossed over to Vienna, Austria, and spoke to Thomas Lutz, Senior Technical Lead with Frequentis, and looking at the CISA Joint Undertaking Urban Air Mobility Research Project, GOF 2.0. Basically, we've released that out as about 10,000 drones over our cities into the future, and that's kind of the project that they're working on. And then last Friday, we looked at facial recognition and biometrics with Cognitech and Unisys. And again, that is available on mysec.tv and very interesting in terms of GovPass as well, the Trusted Digital Identity Framework. Now, some giveaways. We've just released the SCADA and ICS cybersecurity course. We've got Daniel Ehrenreich from Israel going to be delivering that course virtually. So that is available on the marketplace, and let us know if you're interested in that. I'll give you an early bird price. And then I've got 5 complimentary passes to Supercomputing Asia. And if you want to get one of those passes, just let us know. The first 5 that might either, I can't tell you who presses like, but make a comment of where you're listening from during this episode, and I'll make sure you get one of those passes. And that's on next week. That's co-organised by HPC centres from Singapore, Japan and Australia. It's an annual conference. Just looking at the notes down there, down the bottom, an umbrella of notable supercomputing and allied events in Asia. So we've been partnering with Supercomputing Asia for the last few years. So well worth it if you can. So again, 5 complimentary passes available for those who happen to comment. We've been sponsored by RSA and their RSA Secure ID suite this year. So thank you to RSA. We've also closing off our Genetec and our Seagate Skyhawk videos as well. So thank you to Genetec and Seagate for sponsoring this month as well. And if you want to support the channel, we've released a Cyber War Series t-shirt merchandise. So you can go to mysectv.shop and grab one of these t-shirts. We've started off with APT nation-state actors for China, Russia, and India with the panda, the bear, and the tiger. So check them out. I'm wearing mine now. They wash pretty good too. So that's the main thing with a t-shirt. And there's also some cups and socks on there as well. So look, that's it from the marketplace, and we're going to now cross over to the US. And just quickly, Matthew, I can see you in the background. I'll bring you on straight after Rob. I can see you, but I can't hear you. Good on you. Okay, so here's Rob Shaw, Senior Vice President, Marketing with Infinera. Rob, thanks for joining us.
Oh, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Very good. Just going to quickly check the feeds before we actually start. I do have a couple of indicators that we've got an audience, but let me just refresh this. Sorry, mate. We should be fine. No, that computer's going too slow. Okay, let's start that again. Rob Shaw, Senior Vice President with Marketing with Infinera. Rob, maybe introduce us to Infinera. Some of us over here in APAC may not be aware of you. I've had the pleasure of visiting your head office when it was in Sunnyvale. I believe it's in San Jose now. And we're going to look at optical networking. GX series compact modular platform is going to be rolled out in Malaysia. So maybe introduce us to Infinera, and then we'll talk about your role as well. Rob, timing's everything. We've lost you, Rob. No, we lost you. There? Yeah, we lost you there. Okay, you're back now. Did you get my question?
I did. Let me, sorry, there we go. Okay, I just paused my OneDrive syncing. That chews up a lot of my bandwidth a lot of times. So
there you go. That's probably what it was, yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying, Infinera, we're an optical solution provider, optical networking solution provider. And if you kind of think about it, I think everybody kind of gets the idea that information needs to be transported from one place to the next. And really, the predominant way that's done is with optical networking. If you really think about it, optical fibers are kind of the highway infrastructure of the communications network. And there's 2 real key components to that. Of course, the fibers, which are kind of like the roads. And then you have the transmission equipment that are the vehicles that transmit across those roads. So we don't make fiber itself, but we do make the equipment that transmits the information across the fibers, which is everything from aggregation. So we aggregate traffic, and then we generate and actually manufacture the lasers that do the transmissions, whether that's from your house to central office or even across the oceans or between cities.
Now, maybe just talk us through the optical side of that, of the technology of what you're actually doing. You mentioned the lasers there, and at the time there's sort of issues around sort of the space available in this technology as well, and what it's been built on. There's quite some advancements being made here. Where is this at? And maybe where the GX series is at? Is that just continuing to advance? And what type of key technology is it using?
Yeah, it's a great question. In optical networking, there was a handful of watershed moments that were really pretty to help define the space. Obviously, there's fiber transmission itself. This is only about 50 years old. The ability to transmit information across a fiber. And of course, you do that with a laser. You shine a light down a fiber, and you flash it, and that's how you communicate ones and zeros down the fiber. But obviously, there's limitations there, and you can certainly increase the speed of the laser, but there's only so fast you can go. So the next big watershed moment was a way to get more information across a fiber, that instead of transmitting a single source of light down a fiber, you could actually tune each laser to a specific color of light, multiplex those together, and now transmit many colors, many different optical signals down the same fiber, each with a different color of light. That was called dense wave division multiplexing, and got us to about 90 to 100 different optical signals down a single fiber, so increasing the capacity of a fiber network by 100 times. The next real big watershed moment was the inception of a technology called coherent-based optical transmissions. And if you think about the traditional method of transmitting, it was called direct detect. It just light is on or off, and you have an optical receiver. But light is more complicated than that, right? It's both a waveform and a particle, and you've got a vertical component and a horizontal component of each one. And by manipulating those, instead of just the power levels, you can manipulate the phase of the wavelength, you can manipulate the vertical and horizontal polarization modes of each light. It requires a much more sophisticated transceiver, but what it enabled us to do is go from direct detect lasers, which could do about 10 gigabits per second of transmission. And coherent now has pushed us to, well, as you've seen, and we've done some press releases on, we now have each individual wavelength out of those 100 wavelengths can do up to 800 gigabits per second of information on one wavelength. So quite a lot of transitions, and that's really only been about the last 7 or 8 years. We went from 10 gig to 800 gig per wavelength.
How long have you been at 800 gig? A few years or?
Just recently. So really it started being deployed, that technology started being deployed last year, and we're starting to see a ramp up of it this year. There's only 2 suppliers in the industry that have this technology. As you might imagine, as you get higher and higher capacity lasers, they become more complex. Fewer and fewer people have the capability to build them. So it's just us and one other person. Their solution came out last year, and ours is going to be released this year.
Okay, and in terms of the tech and the size, so we're at 800 gig now. Is that we're heading to a terabyte, or does it double as well in terms of general speeds?
Yeah, it's a great question, because there's this. You've got a couple different laws working against you here. One, of course, is so the Shannon limit, which is a big one. So one thing you can always do to increase the capacity of individual lasers, you can actually increase the amount of spectrum that it consumes. So if you think of it's a specific colors of light that you can transmit on a fiber, and they call that the C-band. And that C-band has a certain number of frequencies. So historically, a single laser would take up about 32 gigahertz worth of frequency, and you can do about 96 to 100 of them inside that range of frequencies. So one trick you can do is you can actually use up more spectrum with a single laser, giving you more capacity per laser. So that lowers the economics, because each laser is producing more bandwidth, but it is consuming more of the spectrum, so you're not increasing the capacity of the fiber. And what we're seeing now in most network operators want both. They want not only a lower price per laser or per bit, they also want to increase the capacity of their fiber. And Shannon's limit, which is essentially where we're just about reached with this 800 gig generation, we're at the limit of how much information you can put on a fiber given the current type of technology that we're using. And so now the only benefit you're going to get out of successive generations is lowering cost per bit, but capacity per fiber is capped. I just wanted to make one point real quick. You think about the capacity per fiber, it's really mind-boggling. We just did a trial with Facebook across the Atlantic. So one of their Atlantic cables, they call it the Malaysia cable, on a single fiber cable, and I believe there's 6 in the cable. There's 6 fiber pairs. One pair of cables, we did 28 terabits of capacity. 28 terabits. If you think about how much that is, that's
per second.
Per second. 28 terabits per second of transmission. That is the entire capacity of the SpaceX program. So Elon Musk, and I like SpaceX program, it has a lot of benefits, but the entire SpaceX is 32 terabytes, and one fiber cable.
we need that cable now. We're losing you. Damn it. We've lost you again. You'll be back. I'll give him a moment. Rob, if you happen to be able to hear us, log off and log back on again. Let's try that. There we go. That always works.
All right. Sorry.
That worked.
Yeah, more networking.
What a shame.
I know.
I was going to say, we need that cable, mate.
I know.
It feels like we've got 28 terabytes going through this. And it is interesting, in terms of that, because I know that there's been some recent cable lays here in the Asia Pacific too. I think it was one off to Japan, and I think, again, I'll have to check. I'll check my notes, but that was around that 24 terabyte as well. But yeah, I'll check on that in terms of that. Was just late last year. Have you got us again? Have you frozen again?
I am. Nope, I'm back. Thanks.
Okay, good work. Look, that's fascinating, and I was about to make a Facebook joke that they're sucking 28 terabytes of data about us every second, which is probably not too short. There's a bit of an issue here with Facebook in Australia, but they're back on. They're showing our news now. Well, let's talk about some of the deployments. So if you've got you're up to that 28 terabytes per fiber. That's pretty incredible. Where this is just off the back of an announcement that you're rolling this out with Allo Technologies in Malaysia. How transformative is this? You talk, there's only 2 players in this particular space as well. How transformative is this for, say, a country like Malaysia? Is this on their sort of public systems and their public internet systems, or is this more of a private network being rolled out?
No, it's this type of capacity is primarily used for backbone networks, which carry everything. Whether it's public, private, enterprise, data center traffic, everything goes across these backbones. And when I say backbone, it's not just national networks. It's metros have backbones also. But essentially, the way these networks work is the information is aggregated into these kind of hub locations, and then our technology is this type of technology is largely used to interconnect those hubs. And like, for example, a typical metro area might have 20 hub locations. And then of course, you connect one city to another city and then across the sea. So by the time it hits this traffic or this technology, it's carrying everything. But in terms of transformative, the reason why what we did at Allo is really significant is there's a big transformation going on in optical networking, not just advanced technology, but because there's fewer players do things and it requires a lot of specialization, we're seeing this big transition to what we call open optical networking. It used to be that the same person that built the roads, you'd have to buy that person's cars. So, if you bought vendor X's road, you'd have to then buy all of their cars. But what we're recognizing, and network operators are recognizing, is that the person who built the road doesn't always have the best car. And they're really looking to be able to choose from anybody's car, anybody's lasers to transmit their information. And that's why what we've done here is so significant, is because this is a network that has a number of different road vendors, and they're using our technology, which I would argue is the best car, is the best transmission vehicle. And we're now driving over that. So they're seamlessly operating our car across multiple roads. And even more than just over a road, it's going from one vendor's road onto another vendor's road and then onto a third vendor's road, all without having to terminate the signal. And that's really significant because it gives network operators a lot more opportunity to pick and choose from the best solutions for every function in the network. And this is something they haven't had before. And Allo is being a pioneer in this space and helping to drive that, bring it to fruition, make sure those networks can be operated in that fashion.
Well, give Allo a bit of a plug here as well. So the Allo is the Allo carrier network is the superhighway backbone of Malaysia, and so there's some quotes here, and I'll put this the link out to this release. But Allo Technology is based in Cyberjaya in Malaysia. I think it's just outside of Kuala Lumpur. So have you been working with them for a while, or is this a sort of new arrangement that you've had? And I noticed they've gone for the 600 gig, and obviously there'll be that potential to future-proof it to that 800 gig.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, so Infinera, of course, is an aggregation of a handful of different companies. About 3 years ago, we acquired a company called Corient, which actually is where I'm from. Corient was an aggregation of a bunch of companies, Nokia, Siemens Networks, and Tel Labs, and Sycamore. So yeah, between the group of entities, we have been working with them for a handful of years here, at least. But of course, this is significant because it's beyond just the part of the network that we own. That's with our roads. It goes over multiple vendors' roads, which is what like I said, the big news here is.
All right. Look, what we do have a bit of connection issues with you, unfortunately, and given that it's a technical subject, it might be a bit hard, and it's mainly because I imagine you're at peak time there on the east coast of the US. So we've had that issue before, actually, at around this time. But what I'll do, I'll loop back in to George as well, and we might do an offline session on this and just capture sort of some of that technical stuff, because it's fascinating and it's critical to all of our technology right now in terms of the backbone fiber links as well. So I think we'll cut it a little bit short. Matthew, just give us a nod if you're ready to go, if you can. Yep, give us the thumbs up. You just cut out there. I might be even my end. Okay, Matthew's ready to go. So look, Rob Shaw, I do apologize. We'll cut it short, but like I said, I'll put the link out to the show notes, and I'll also do an edited version of this and at least get it down what we did capture from you. But I can see we've got quite a bit of a delay, unfortunately. Your audio is okay, but you're a bit jumpy there. So we'll cut it short. And that's Rob Shaw, Senior Vice President Marketing with Infinera, and looking at the GX series compact modular platform, reaching up to 800 gigs per wavelength. And as he mentioned, 28 terabyte per fiber per second backbone link. So very impressive. So look, Rob, thanks very much, mate. And I'll sign you out. Great. Thanks for having me. Sorry about the connectivity. Yeah, what a shame. Yeah, what a shame. Yeah. We'll have you back. Cheers, mate. Okay, thanks. Okay, bye-bye. Okay, that's live TV, folks, as you get it. So, but very interesting, and in terms of the optical fiber networks. Okay, so for our next guest, and hopefully our link to Hong Kong goes much better, and we're joined by Matthew Glitzer, Vice President for Asia Pacific with IBM Security. Matthew, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me here today.
Very good. We've got a bit of a delay. Maybe it is the Australian side today. Just a slight delay. But look, thank you very much for joining us at relatively short notice too. The report sort of landed on my desk, and it was like, okay, and I had a slot open for this morning. Certainly introduce us to your role. You're in Hong Kong?
I'm actually in Singapore, yeah. And I'm responsible for IBM's security software and services business for Asia Pacific, which is all of Asia except for Japan. But the report does, when we talk about Asia in the report, it's inclusive of Japan as well.
Very good. I think you've recently moved to Singapore, haven't you? You were in Hong Kong?
I was in Hong Kong before.
Very good. I think I was dealing with the Hong Kong office as well. So I took a guess. I was thinking, I noticed on LinkedIn you've got Singapore. Yeah, maybe talk us into IBM Security. We worked with IBM Security last year on your ASEAN Security Summit. So it was a pleasure working with IBM at the time. Yeah, maybe introduce us to IBM Security, and particularly in the Asia Pacific region, and where you guys are at.
Sure. So from IBM Security, we're the world's largest enterprise security software and services company. Over 9,000 security services practitioners globally, and a broad portfolio of security software technology, as well as a really broad ecosystem. Right? So from a technology perspective, it's everything from identity access management and data protection, through threat management and detection, and then really where we get to today, we're one of the world's largest MSS providers, and today, our X-Force team, our X-Force threat management team, that we have the X-Force Red, which does vulnerability testing. We've got X-Force threat management, Intel, as well as the Exchange, where we share our insights globally to clients and governments around the world. And really focused on helping clients really build security into the design and the fabric of their businesses, right, and their processes.
Very good. Okay, very good. And I'm getting a slight delay here as well. So maybe it's on the Australian end in terms of the live stream, unfortunately. Did you happen to have any sort of report slides to share with you? Otherwise, we can walk through the report.
I've got three charts.
Go for it. You should be able to share.
Do I need to share?
If you share your screen.
Sure, can. 1 second. let me find, where would I do that here?
Just down the bottom, there's a share screen. And you can share it either via the screen or the application.
I am not seeing share screen here, sorry. Oh, hold on, I got it.
Just down.
Yep,
Beautiful.
I got it. Let's go. I should have practiced this before. All right, can you see my screen now?
Yeah, that's okay. We appreciate it's early morning for you. We've got your PowerPoint. That's the one. There you go, done.
Awesome. All right, brilliant. So again, so just a little bit about X-Force and about the report, Chris. The importance of this is that, we've been doing it for a while, but it's based on real data. Our experience from doing response from a technology perspective, from managed security services, kind of the end-to-end security view, and bringing all of that information and knowledge into a report to share with the security community, our clients in the world, to help not only inform what it's been like for the past year, but also really to help people understand and then perhaps take some of this learning or knowledge and apply it to their future strategies. And so it dropped on Wednesday in the US, and from an Asia Pacific perspective, we'll talk a little bit in depth about some of the key points from Asia. And I'm just going to touch on a couple of the key findings, but it is downloadable for free on the internet, and people will be able to go and grab it. But let me bring your attention, if I can, to the center of the page and talk about the threats to supply chain as a starting point. Financial services continues to be the number one attack point, but what's interesting we found this year is that manufacturing and energy that were respectively 8 and 9 last year are now numbers 2 and 3. And if you look at the third point there around ICS-related vulnerability, that's a big reason why. So a couple of the findings. So from a manufacturing perspective, from an energy perspective, downtime has a very, very high cost. And they have a higher likelihood because of their ICS and the SCADA systems that could be a lot of which are internet connected through IT systems or reachable through internet and cybersecurity. It creates a much broader threat surface. So
Matthew,
the ability
just on that ICS, do you think it's a matter of more ICS systems coming online and being connected and sort of reducing their air gap sort of protection that they might have had before? Or is it from the attacker's side actively starting to reach out and try and find these systems?
I think it's probably a combination of the two. There's certainly a proliferation of sensors and other IoT-related devices, but I think it's also looking at where the richest targets are, right? So if you can get access and the impact, the potential impact, you have a much higher chance of getting a ransom paid from these industries, right? Because of the time sensitivity of downtime.
Fair enough. And
so, please.
Go for it.
Sure. Okay. So, and that if you look below around cloud and Linux, we live in a hybrid cloud world more than ever before, and the hybrid cloud runs 90% on Linux. So seeing a new Linux malware families is not a surprise, but the proliferation is 40% greater year on year. And what we've seen is a significant rise in use of Go as the tool to proliferate the attacks from a Linux and from other OSs. And I think what's interesting, we're seeing the rise of ransomware as a service, right? The outsourcing of cyber attacks. If you move to the right, from a healthcare perspective, 2020 was unprecedented from a pandemic perspective. So there's no surprise that there were more attacks in healthcare, and there were on PPE manufacturers, on the cold chain and supply chain, on health systems. And I think that, one of the things that we saw is that the movement of cybersecurity from a financial impact and a business impact to really the human impact and the human element and the implications of cybersecurity and cyber attacks. Europe has become the top geo. We'll look at some numbers in the next chart. And then from a ransomware perspective, I think that this is a really important topic because, it's not just about ransomware, which is 23% of the attacks. It's really about the fact that almost 60% of the attacks were double extortion, right? So we talk about the ransomware, the approach used to be, hey, you know what? They get our data, they encrypt our servers, but we've got backups, we'll store from backups, we don't have to pay. The implication of data exfiltration, right, is that you're not just having the backups isn't enough, because if your data is exfiltrated and they're able to then proliferate that onto the internet, not only from a brand issue or embarrassment, right, there are significant compliance risks attached to this, both national and global, GDPR, other types of privacy-related and data privacy-related issues that companies will have to deal with. So from that perspective, it's double jeopardy from a ransomware perspective. And any other questions there, Chris?
Well, yeah, I'm just looking at the 5 hours length of attack training videos on a threat group server. So that's their, as you say, the attacker side training themselves, and they've got the how-to videos out there, right?
Yeah, well, the funny part is that they're not public videos. This is where, from an Iranian threat group, we were able through X-Force to gain access to one of their private servers and actually download their training videos, which gave us a significant amount of information about not only about the attackers, but their strategies and how they plan to proliferate. So I think we brought that public last year. But it was, those are examples of where our threat intelligence and our teams are out constantly scanning the environment and trying to make sure that we're, to the extent possible, staying on par or ahead of the bad actors.
Well, it was interesting. Al Gerde from the World Economic Forum Center for Cybersecurity mentioned that on Tuesday, that they work 9 to 5, take holidays, celebrate Christmas, they take a break. So they're corporatized, whatever the word is. But yeah, they're full on.
100%. So if we just look from a numbers perspective, this is a contest that you don't want to win, right? And Europe is number one in the last year. Saw a 10% increase, and we saw actually in North America a significant decrease. I mean, that's a material decrease. In Asia, a slight increase, but you might almost be surprised, almost on par with North America, and then Central and South America, Middle East, and Africa, with smaller attack numbers. Let's bring it, if we can, bring it to Asia for a second.
Matthew, just quickly, please. Sorry, I'm just seeing you are sharing your entire screen. Do you see that? You can just shrink that off. It's in the middle of the screen.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at the.
Yeah, see that share screen? No, sorry. See the share screening? Just go back.
Yeah.
No, sorry. Yeah. Go back to sharing your slides. Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah. Bring it back up. Maybe. Okay, so we'll leave it there. It's something you can shrink. When you share a screen on Zoom, there's a little tab. Thank you. That was the one. Got it.
That's
okay,
what you're looking for? No worries at all.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I wasn't being hacked. So talking about Asia Pacific for a second, and this, it's really interesting. Each market and each geo has different maturity. But in Asia, the data theft and leak and ransomware are by far and away the two largest attack vectors. And data theft being the most common in 2020 in Asia. Now, this is interesting. The use of Emotet to steal credentials, right, as part of a plan around data theft, really picked up in the fall of 2020. And what was really interesting or important about this as well is that what we noticed is that there's a real evolution. Emotet's been around for a while, but there's been a real evolution in Emotet in terms of the libraries it has as well as its anti-detection capabilities. So it's clear that, and the risk potential as it relates to data theft, not only for having your data show up on the dark web and the implications, but really around compliance is important. And then from a ransomware perspective, we're certainly seeing that and the implication of the double extortion. I think it's really important, BEC attacks, right? The business email compromise attacks were significantly less. Right, and in Asia, and I think there are a couple of reasons. We've seen over the last couple of years a real move towards multi-factor in Asia, and it's common, across all applications, and it's not just banking at this point. But it's also, I think, due to the fact that we've spent a lot of time and we've seen a real growing acceptance of the concept of zero trust as it relates to data protection and how organizations go about doing identity and access management. That's a big thing, right? Because the concept of zero trust is trust no one and verify at each step. And then how do you apply kind of AI and little AI to your security posture? And from that perspective, again, when you look at this, it's not just about IAM. It's really about security as an end-to-end fabric. It's not just about response, but really is how do you determine with sometimes limited budgets where you apply your investment for the best benefit of the business and your clients, and how do you make sure you're prepared and implementing automation, orchestration, in order to drive not only detection and protection, but response as well.
Yeah.
So,
well, obviously that data theft, I mean, that's where the money is really, and if it's not that exfiltration, it's the ransomware next. Interesting, the countries under attack there, Japan, followed by India, and then Australia. Has there been an uptake over recent years on Japan as well? It used to be, there's no language sort of barrier there anymore, and so for their attack vectors, they're open slather.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. I think it's the proliferation of tools and the maturation evolution of the capabilities of the attackers has made the language issue less of an issue, right?
Yeah, very much. Okay, and how are we going for the next one? Although that was up from 22%. That was the other observation as well that jumped up.
Correct. That was the last chart I had to share, Chris. So I can leave that up. If there are other questions you have, we can talk through.
No, I think we'll bring it up. And it looks like let me just bring up the report itself. How are you finding sort of the maturity of the market now with IBM Security? And maybe we might just finish up on discussing ASEAN, because again, that's something we worked on with IBM Security last year and the summit. Maybe the outcomes of ASEAN. We're about to do I can't announce it just yet, but we're doing something special with ASEAN shortly, in a week or two. But yeah, how's the ASEAN sector going and some of the maturity? We're in Singapore, but probably the other countries of ASEAN, the ASEAN 6.
Yeah. So look, being based in Singapore, obviously it's core and being part of ASEAN. We are closely engaged across all of the ASEAN 6 markets. Each one has a different level of maturity as it relates to not only zero trust and IAM, but their SOC capabilities and SIM capabilities, and but we're seeing a significant increase in the interest and the conversations and the adoption of the zero trust frameworks. And that's really not just Singapore, it's across. Those discussions are on and they're active in every market. Again, you see different levels of maturity. So in some, you're seeing the move towards more integrated SIM and SOC capabilities and really starting to apply a little bit more advanced AI, right? So if you think about the threat management and our QRadar product set, going from core log management into flows, network flows, then user behavior analytics is part of an overall triangulation strategy around identity, and also from a remediation perspective. And we're really focused, Chris, around, we call it Cloud Pak for Security, which is a platform built on the Red Hat OpenShift cloud platform. But it's really about how to applying intelligence, X-Force threat management intelligence or other intelligence feeds, and then applying orchestration and automation and really helping clients advance and modernize their detect and respond capabilities. And on the services side, we do a significant amount of business, both from a retainer and active execution on our incident response service through X-Force. And then obviously we have a pretty significant managed security services business and consulting business around threat assessment and security posture assessments as well. But we can see clearly Singapore and the rest of ASEAN is clearly focused on cybersecurity and protection, and really starting to make progress in across the board in the maturation of their processes and their approach.
Look, you're VP for Asia Pacific. How are you going with skills there as well in the region? Are you finding there's any challenges there?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Chris. There are, one of the, I think it might have been the World Economic Forum, but there have been call out of significant skills shortages. And it's, I think, one of the reasons why clients are leveraging IBM, not only because of our local capabilities, but our global capabilities. And our ability to provide a hybrid follow the sun model, and to mitigate people's risk. But look, I think that this will continue to be an issue, not just in ASEAN or in Asia, but around the world, as the impact and the complexity of cybersecurity grows. And we do a lot of work around P-Tech and in other areas we call P-Tech, in order to helping to create and promote cybersecurity as a career, and to help bring younger students into the tech world and the cybersecurity world.
Very good. Well, look, thank you very much for that, Matthew. We'll put a link in the show notes. Hopefully, I don't have it in front of me, but I'll definitely put it in the show notes to the report. We've also put it onto the My Security Marketplace as well. And also with the skills, I'll circle back to you next week when we make our announcement for ASEAN. I think, but yeah, it'll be of interest, but it's something to do with our International Women's Day as well in that regard. So look, we had a little bit of an issues today with our live cross. We've settled into Singapore finally, but yeah, thank you, Matthew. What I'll do is I'll do an edited version of this interview so it's nice and tight. And I'll release that as soon as we can and share that out. But I do appreciate your time and getting up early there in Singapore. Looks like the sun's up finally.
The sun is up in Singapore. Listen, Chris, it's been great to be with you. I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Wonderful. Thank you. Matthew Glitzer, Vice President, Asia Pacific with IBM Security. I'll let you go and enjoy your day. Cheers. Thank you, Matthew. Bye-bye. Okay. Let me just change this over. And a bit of a shame on our links today, unfortunately, but that's the way that the internet rolls. And look, from one report to another, I thought I'd share this one. We're doing a little bit of work with Fortinet as well at the moment. And if you happen to be a senior practitioner or even a CISO, we're running a virtual roundtable with Fortinet in a couple of weeks. This is their Global Threat Landscape report. They're semi-annual report for FortiGuard Labs. And here is a breakdown of ransomware strains of interest for the second half of 2020. And pretty much most of them are trending upwards as well. So very interesting in terms, and it's well presented in terms of some of the graphics here. And this is the rate and spread of over 1,500 vulnerability exploits in the wild. So there's a few there, obviously standouts here. Joomla, D-Links, Think PHP, and a Joomla.core. So worth having a look and just getting in even from IBM Security there, but also reports like this gives you a sense of how active it is now on the internet, and it's interesting times. Look, please check out our Cyber War series. It pretty much goes along the lines of what we're covering. And then we'll be back on Tuesday afternoon off cybersecurity. We'll be back into data centers, looking at the Macquarie government's new government data center in Canberra, $17 million investment there. And we'll be with Aidan Tudhope, the managing director. And then I've also got Defence Tech, I think, in terms of their rocket propulsion system as well. We'll look at that on Tuesday. And then next Friday, the Smart Factory Technology, and we've got the managing director from the Advanced Manufacturing Growth Centre, and I believe he is in Adelaide. So look, that's it from us today, and I'll do an edited version out here of this episode, and we'll split them off as well. Optical Networks and IBM Security's X-Force Intelligence Index. So thank you very much for joining us, and enjoy your day.